The day we flew out for this second Ukraine trip, Russia was still actively destroying cities we would soon be walking in. The news from that day was grim.
Ukraine's western city of Lviv has been a relative safe haven during almost 2 months of fighting. Until now. Russian missiles killing at least 7 people, local authorities say. The deadly advance of Russia's war extending to a city that's become a refuge for thousands fleeing. It's also a major supply hub. Where are we supposed to evacuate to now, says this woman. They are hitting all of Ukraine, an increasing feeling that nowhere is truly safe.
We took the time to understand the risks and work with partners on the ground there that understand where it is best to provide help and hope and where it is needed most. The logistics of bringing help to a war zone are complicated, to say the least. So the actual behind-the-scenes work for a trip like this begins long before we ever secure our airline tickets. We quickly learned that evacuation drivers, truck drivers delivering food, and even frontline military were using faulty homemade body armor and were being killed. It consisted of 2 metal plates with a styrofoam cover and a tire scrap on the reverse side. You may remember on the day we did evacuations in Kyiv on our first trip, drivers running a rescue convoy parallel to ours was ambushed, and 4 drivers were shot, with 1 being killed. The armor they needed to stop the 7.62 AK rounds is highly regulated by the U.S. State Department and required ITAR clearance far higher than any typical citizen has. This paperwork alone takes 8 weeks to clear a single department. We have read the Bible stories of God giving David victory over the giant in his path, and we have heard countless stories from missionaries carrying help and hope in the name of Jesus. So we did what the heroes that have gone before us did, and we prayed as we stepped forward, knowing that God will work it out. And of course, God was faithful. God moved the obstacles, and through a collaboration with the Department of Defense contractors locally, congressmen, a state senator, and an armor company in Arizona, we got ITAR clearance in just 4 days and began ordering and assembling bulletproof plate carriers. This trip is significantly different than the first Ukraine trip we took just 2 weeks after the war began. The evacuation waves of women and children common on our first trip have slowed, and the rescue teams we support have been pulling out the disabled elderly from the front lines. Our Ukraine relief team was designed to split into 2 impact groups this time. One group will focus on ministering to refugees displaced by war. They will work with the orphanages on the west side of Ukraine. The other impact group will be logistical in nature, going further east into the Donbas region to connect with the right people, deliver supplies, and try to get a good understanding of the predicted food crisis that looms. So, as one team, we gathered our combat medical supplies, packed up 88 bulletproof vests, 20 ballistic helmets, warm clothes, art supplies for refugees and orphanages, much needed insulin, dozens of radios for communication, and so much more in 27 luggage pieces, all of them overweight and some of them oversized.
We landed in Germany with all 27 of our pieces of luggage, 0 issues.
We took our 2 vans from Germany and began what would be more than a 2,500-mile journey through the Czech Republic, Poland, and across the whole of Ukraine. The amount of driving is the same as going from New York to San Francisco. It was not a completely uneventful drive. We did have a few side adventures.
Yeah, it's bad right here.
And duct tape and zip ties will fix it. Run through the back.
Fixing the diesel leak, but we lost quite a bit of diesel. So we're asking somebody's neighbor if they have some to spare.
Sergio and I just went down to a road and hitchhiked. And this nice man picked us up even though I am a giant. We made sure to pray for this tiny Polish Good Samaritan with his tiny car and blessed him with money for his time and kindness.
You guys, Yuri's a professional.
That's right, that's why we hired him.
We made one last stop to buy about 1,000 pounds of food to haul into Ukraine from Poland before heading to cross the border. A law had passed in the last 48 hours that allowed cars to enter into Ukraine tax-free. That line, seen here on the right, is literally estimated to be a 4-day wait. We bypassed that line only to find out one of our vans had a license plate requiring it to wait in that long line.
Our vans have been separated at the border for several hours. Half of our team is stuck in vans that are not cleared to pass because of a law that changed so quickly that we couldn't stay on top of it. And so we're asking God for a miracle.
The miracle came in a completely different way than we had planned. We returned to Poland, put all the supplies and team members in a larger single van, and made another immediate attempt to cross the border. In total, it took 8 hours of waiting, but we made it. Having been up the previous day fixing the van, and then all night trying to cross the border, we entered Ukraine early in the morning.
This is how Ukraine feels like.
Oh, is that it?
Welcome to Ukraine.
Oh, that was it?
Yep.
A few hours later, and we were in Lviv to drop off 4 huge 80-pound bins of medical supplies. We then repacked the van and drove a few more hours to Ternopil.
In Lviv, we were able to drop off over $20,000 worth of medical supplies that people are waiting for. They will be picked up from the location and taken into Kiev, where there are doctors who set up an underground hospital, and they are treating military and the wounded there.
Our time in Ternopil began with unloading the ballistic shielding we brought. We also began unpacking and assembling individual bags for the refugee children. That evening, we spent time at the shelter, connecting with displaced refugees from all over Ukraine.
I talked to tonight had been there for quite a while, and she was just thanking us for bringing all the things to the kids, that it was really not just a gift to the kids, but a gift to the moms.
Just for us to be playing with the children, just to see like the happiness on the kids when they had been under so much duress.
To us, it's not that huge of a thing, but to them it really meant something for us to just be present. And she just grabbed my hands and kept thanking us.
Wow.
What is that?
my dog.
We would minister to families and things would almost feel normal, but then all too common reminders that we were never really safe in a country at war would interrupt us.
The sirens are going off. I think we're more shocked that everything is business as usual. Everybody's lives are continuing. Like, nobody stops to, shift something in their day or in their life. It's normal.
Just see people walking, it's like nobody cares anymore. They just get used to it, learn to live with it, I think.
I mean, kids aren't upset, shops aren't closing, people barely notice, and this is just every day for them. They're used to it. So, I don't know, it changes your perspective on things.
The air raid sirens were constant because the Russians were bombing just an hour northwest of us. We had driven through that exact city just the morning before. We remained on alert and often wore our protective gear. The next morning, our logistics team began tackling a new problem emerging on the eastern side of Ukraine.
All right, we are in Ternopil and are in the warehouse to load up our bus with supplies.
Our efforts are switching here from immediate evacuations to feeding programs as the war takes a shift into a second phase of help. No longer are we pulling people out every day. We're trying to get food into the places that are completely cut off. So our mission today is to pack at least 600 bags and then to haul them into areas that are still at a deep unrest. Ukraine feeds roughly 400 million people beyond their border, so food shortages are expected to impact North Africa through Eastern Europe.
We headed east with food and supplies to the Donbas region on a 2-day mission. As a humanitarian convoy, we travel at high speeds and bypass traffic often by driving on the wrong side of the road. At first, it's nerve-wracking, but cars move out of the way knowing your cargo is desperately needed.
The farmers who are desperately trying to keep their crops going as war rages all around them.
As the war in Ukraine grinds on and the human toll mounts, there is another humanitarian disaster looming, a global food crisis. Every day the war lasts, world food supplies are damaged. Because Ukraine is an agricultural powerhouse, a top 10 exporter of wheat, corn, soybeans, barley, sunflower oil, and poultry. Russia is an even bigger player in global agriculture. So with the war in Ukraine and the punishing sanctions on Russia combined, almost all that food could be gone from world markets this year.
Across the fertile fields of Ukraine's southeast, a fierce battle is raging, and the momentum can change in an instant. Ukrainian troops have taken us near the front line. They've managed to push Russia back here. But a massive missile crater shows the power of Moscow's military assault.
We passed through hours of fertile farmland, much of it being planted by farmers risking their lives. We arrived in Dnipro in the Donbas region after midnight.
So we are in a huge city right now. Everything is dark, black. You can see the stars in a city that has 1 million people or more.
Dnipro is a key city just north of the most violent conflict zone, Mariupol. Why is everything we do here so scary? This is like a scene from a very bad movie. I want my mom.
We just came into a city of over 1 million people, and there were no cars and no lights on, and it's kind of eerie.
Yeah, it's scary. No cars. You can see the stars in the middle of the city. You look up and it's like bright.
We're now in somebody's apartment. Clearly somebody lives here and left in a hurry, or I don't know whose apartment this is, but there's nobody in here and they gave us a key.
The next morning, we delivered supplies and met contacts doing important work. As we left Dnipro, we recorded this footage crossing the bridge. Little did we know, less than a week later, that bridge would be completely destroyed by a Russian missile strike. Despite the obvious dangers in that area, the driver teams that we love and support continue to evacuate the disabled elderly. These guys are heroes. This is why we continue to supply them with the best protective gear and equipment.
Все получили, парни. Все получили. Парни, помашите. Скажите спасибо.
Христос воскрес! While our logistics team went east to deliver supplies, the other half of our team, we stayed in Ternopil, where God had connected us to some beautiful people who were able to get us in touch with the local orphanages in that area. We got to visit children who, since COVID, we heard that nobody would visit them. Many of them had special needs. And so we were able to come there and bring them goodie bags and food and art supplies. We spent time with their staff and just got to love on them and share Jesus and let them know that they were not alone.
So we are currently buying some flowers, tulips, for the staff there at the orphanage.
We're now taking goodies to the orphanage. Yeah.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Jesus is alive. I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is alive. I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is alive. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
We are headed into another orphanage. We're also bringing gifts and sweets.
And realized this was the first time they'd ever had sour candy. And while one boy was freaking out because this was a new taste, the other boy was laughing his head off because he just tricked his friend into it. Right now we're getting food for an orphanage in Lviv. Working with kids is super serious. I am the van guardian of the van.
All right, Jessica's pretty happy about it. Okay.
I'm starving, I'm cold, and
we're getting...
That's solid.
Do you speak English?
Do I speak English?
No, I do not speak English.
Я погладить?
Да.
А тобі розрішають? Ти хочеш, щоб я з тобою пішов і щоб накричали на мене?
Так.
Да? He wants to get me in trouble.
We're excited to be here. We brought in supplies, art things, cleaning things that they needed, a lot of food and some toys, I think, and some other things with the kids. It's so exciting to be the hands and feet of Jesus and just love on these kids. The building that you see behind me is the orphanage. It's over 1,000 years old, which is crazy.
I think those kids are gonna get hit by a drone. That's what I think.
Our time in Ukraine had come to an end, and even though we spent 86 hours in the car together, the trip felt short in some regards. We love the people, that's why we come. We have compassion for their situation, and it's easy to empathize with their needs. People are asking if we will return and when. We don't know when yet, but we are starting to catch a vision for how we can do longer ministry here and impact the next generation. Nothing on this trip seemed to come easy once we hit the ground, but it was worth it. We believe God can bring healing, wholeness, and new life to this land. We believe we can be continuing vessels of hope. Thank you for continuing to support the help and the care that we bring in the name of Jesus.